This is Newton.
I won't open mine, you can use yours.
Yeah.
Thing on you? Okay.
Okay.
All set? Yep. The Newton Board of Adjustments called to order at 7:30 PM, May 4th of 2022. Jim, would you please call a roll call?
Mr. Kozak,
Here.
Mr. Hamel,
Present.
Mr. Conley,
Here.
Mr. Gibbs,
Here.
Ms. McCarthy.
Here.
All present, correct.
Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God,
Indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a pretty busy schedule this evening. The first is a preliminary continuation for 125 development.
Recording in progress.
That was me
125
turning on my
development.
recording.
And just to go over the rules for preliminary, the residents or butters or the public cannot make any comments during the preliminary review. This is the second or third time we've had this up here, not until we get to the public hearings, and I'll go through the format and what happens and then. So right now, the only ones that can ask questions are the members of the boards. And the reason it's done this way is if there's something missing that we think we need to go on to a public hearing, and that's basically what this preliminary is all about. And you're speaking for the for 125.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones and Beach Engineers.
Excuse me, can everybody hear him out there?
I will try to speak louder.
Thank you.
Again, thank you. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones and Beach Engineers here for the applicants. This project is on map 14, lot 27-3. It's part of the Southern New Hampshire Industrial Park. This would be part of phase 2 of the Southern New Hampshire Industrial Park. We're here requesting 2 variances to the zoning board or zoning regulations. The first one is this section Roman numeral 27.8B to allow activity requiring a building permit be allowed within 50 foot of any poorly drained or very poorly drained soils. And the second one is to section Roman numeral 25.1 to allow construction of structures within 200 feet of abutting differently zoned properties. Now, variance 1, the construction of which the phase 2 roads requires impacting wetlands at 4 locations. Construction also results in wetland buffer impacts. We're proposing additional wetland buffer impacts to the construction of drainage features, including the treatment ponds, swales, and additionally there is some wetland buffer impacts to complete the grading around buildings 2 and 3. No buildings, parking, or driveways, except for the proposed roads, are located in the wetland buffer. The wetland buffers are impacted at 11 locations totaling 102,101 square feet. Now, for variance number 2, this zone that we're in requires a 200-foot structural setback to all otherly zoned properties. So the definition of structure is very broad and could be interpreted to include anything constructed or installed, including street signs, catch basins, pipes, etc. So therefore, we have taken a conservative approach and are requesting a variance to allow the structures as listed on the plans within the 200-foot setback. For clarity purposes, we broke the impacts out into drainage, septic, parking, and structural setbacks. And the structural setbacks we're calling out include the signs, light poles, kind of any miscellaneous structure. We have provided the 20-scale plans depicting all the impacts, and each page includes a list of the impacts shown on that page. With that, take any questions the board may have.
Yeah, so I think we all understand that the 2 variants you're asking for, those are multiple variance requests, correct?
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
They're not just 1 and 2. Now, I think that at one of the meetings, I can't remember which one it was, there was supposed to be a list of all the variances on the drawings.
All the places that we
Right.
are impacting, it's on
That's correct.
the sheet as shown.
So, and how did you list them? A, B, C, D, or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5?
So we listed them, if you look on the sheet I have in front of, on the
But
board.
I'm
Sheet
pretty
3.
sure I asked them to be shown on the plans.
They're both.
Both, okay, so, and
So-
there's a list that says, now, what did you use numerically, 1 through whatever, or A, B, C?
Correct.
One
We
through.
have 1, 2, 3, and we
Okay.
list them as drainage impacts,
Yeah.
parking impacts, 1 through 3, septic impacts,
Buffer
1 through
impact,
3,
yeah.
structural impacts, 1 through 8, and then the wetland impacts and wetland buffer impacts. We have a number for each of them. They have a call out on the pages that they are located on.
Okay, they are there, okay,
Yep.
okay.
So you use numerical and,
Yeah, okay.
and each one,
Is everybody happy with the way that they're displayed?
I have, the way that it is displayed is all right. I do have several questions.
Go right ahead, Roger.
Okay, first of all, where is Wetland Buffer Impact 3? 'Cause I couldn't find, I couldn't find it. It's a small one, it's 375 square feet. If you call it out on page 00, but I couldn't find it on any of those plans. I mean, I figure I must have missed it.
I thought it was in the big. I was looking for this.
Sorry, did you say wetland buffer or wetland impact?
Wetland Buffer.
How's the numbers on there?
no, let him identify it, let's see what he says. Because we may be missing it, because I had the same question.
I'm sorry, again, was it wetland buffer or
Wetland Buffer
wetland buffer?
for 375 square feet, according to the page 00, but I could not find it on the 20 scale.
So this goes into a question that Jack has and I have. And so you've done what we asked, but I think this is going to go, I'm going to add to him. We cannot easily identify, like, just take drainage impact, 1 through 8, structural impact, 1 through 8. We can't go to this and easily identify
What page is it on?
what's what where. So
They-
So what would be helpful for that is on page 00.
Right.
where-
And maybe
where-
I'm missing it, so let him answer first, sorry.
Okay.
But if I'm missing it, then I just want it to shown so that I can identify which number one is different between drainage, structural, wetland, parking, et cetera.
So each of the impacts, if you look, say, if you go to ZB2, which is sheet 5,
Yep, yeah.
if you look in the top left corner, you have drainage impact number 1 and an area for that. That is pointing to the drainage features.
Okay, here's where we go. Okay.
But I think it would have been helpful if on page 00, in addition to calling out the numbers, also calling out which page in the
Like where
20
page number
scale
that you-
that they will, that we would find them.
Yeah, we can do that too. So, and if we go back to ZBA2, which is sheet 5, you will see, this is just an example, that on the left-hand, the bottom right there, we have a call out for each of the drainage, or each of the impacts that is shown on that sheet. So sheet,
Okay, I see.
sheet
Oh,
5 has drainage impacts 1, 2, 3, structural impact 1, wetland impact 2, and wetland buffer impact number 2.
Yeah, here it is.
But they're all in square feet.
And as I said, if you look up on the top left, you
does that
have
mean to
drainage
many square
impact
feet?
1, and then we
Let's
have
ask
an
him.
area for it.
Let's ask him.
So when we're calling out, especially for the drainage and the septic systems, there's multiple items. So for the drainage impact, you have the actual outlet structure from the pond as well as the pipe. So we call that one drainage impact, which would be 44 square feet. We call out,
I understand the impact, but when we're looking at them, at least I am, and I kind of concur with what Roger is, I want to know how many feet you are from the variance requirement.
they're shown.
But I'm looking at square feet here.
So we have a square footage. If you're looking in the top left, it has a square footage. And then it has the distance, which is 80 feet, 11 3/4 inches from the property line.
Which map are you looking at?
I'm looking at sheet 5, which is ZBA2.
Okay.
Square feet, square feet, square, no.
Is the planning board gonna get a different set of plans?
The planning board will get a different set of plans that shows the exact same
Here, look.
features, but in a
All
different
right,
format.
now I understand what he's done.
Okay, go ahead.
So
Why
here's your
aren't we
square
looking
footage,
at
right?
Yeah,
Because
Now
you
look up here.
require
That's
20
your
scale
distance.
plans.
okay.
Yeah, but
So he's
we
identified
need
one.
something that
Okay,
has
all right.
planning board
Okay,
on it,
now I
not
understand it.
ZBA.
That's your
That
80,
should say
This all should be
ZBA.
looking at the same set of plans.
82 feet
You're
11.
looking at the same information.
But he's not
You're looking
identifying-
at it in different
So
scale.
the thing I would like to
But I
see,
think the chairperson asked for you to take ZBA off of it at our last
This,
meeting.
this,
This
this
is where I
shouldn't
got
have
confused.
anything to do with the
Square feet,
ZBA, these plans.
This,
This has to do with
All
the
it has
planning board.
the planning board requires different information than the zoning board.
Well,
So
we should have that too.
You're more than happy. I can print you out a set of plans that the zoning board has for the site plans, but they require different things. They require profiles for all the roads, cross-sections for all the roads, the utility plans. This, I'm trying to show you what the board asked for, which is plans that show the impacts.
Impacts.
But my other main problem is you appear to show that parking lots are structures, but roads are structures and drainage, what do you call them, basins are also structures. And you haven't called those
Yeah,
out.
we've called out all the drainage that is in the 200
Not
feet.
the whole structure. You called out the pipe.
No, we called out, so what I was alluding to earlier was if you look at, let's go to,
That, number one, structural.
go to sheet ZBA 3, which is sheet 6.
Sheet 6. CBA 3.
So in the top left, we have drainage impact number 4.
yep,
That includes
The
the
13.
catch basin, 2 catch basins, and the 2 pipes that are connected to them. So just like as a septic system, I don't call out each individual line in the septic system, nor do I call out, individually the septic tank or the pipes that lead to it. I call it all out as one impact. So for a septic impact, which we're calling out 3 of them, it includes all that information.
So on page ZBA 3, the septic system, that's at the top of the page.
Number one,
that's impact 1.
impact 1.
It's 968 square feet.
So that's for the,
It includes the pipes, the
that
the
includes
leaching
the-
field pipes, the box, and the
the
pipe that
septic
goes to,
system and the leach field?
say that
So
again.
that's the septic
That is for the entire
tanks
leach.
and the leach fields?
Correct.
Everything, okay.
So I just want to make sure I understand how you've drawn this out. So you've got 968 square feet is what you're drawing, correct? And then if I follow the arrows, you're saying going, I want to go north-south, so
What is it?
so I'm going kind of south west during this, 146.2 feet to the line. Is that
Correct.
accurate?
That is accurate.
So that's to the line, and what is your variance ask?
We're requesting 968 square feet of impact.
This is where I'm having difficulty, okay? I understand the impact of that process you're bringing up. I want to know how many feet. There's a 200-foot buffer from
Correct.
commercial to residential. Let's just take that building right there, or what Mike's,
The structure, yep.
right. How many feet of a variance are you looking for?
So
That is what we need,
so you're,
yeah.
so at 146 and 2 inches, I think what you're asking for, and I'm gonna allow you to correct me, is that you're asking for 50 feet, 53 feet 10 inches of variance.
You're right. You're
Okay,
correct.
so when these plans are done up, it's done up in the, what are you asking for? Not the I get the distance and I appreciate that, right? But your variance is really that you're asking us to give you 53 feet, 10 inches of a variance.
I think I see what you're alluding
So
to.
that's where we're getting confused because we're used to the request of a variance, not the, here's what my footage is.
So
Here's
for-
what square footage, because we can only deal with variances based on books of law.
Right. So for each of these impacts, say if we look at each of the impact labels there on that sheet,
Yep,
if I put the square footage and say for the septic number 1, if I say 53 feet 10 inches is what I'm requesting.
Variance.
correct.
That's correct.
So
So
that's
it-
the line I'm missing, basically.
The square footage is nice to have for us because okay, so that's showing us what you're doing.
Yeah.
But if we have to make a decision, the decision is based off of the variance.
And also, which zoning ordinance are you using? The 200-foot setback or the other one for water and so forth? That's critical, because when we're looking at them, if you're looking for a 52-foot variance and it's a commercial to residential, that's huge. You're actually looking for
50-foot,
148 feet variance. That's what I want to see. If 52 feet, but I want to see the 100, what are you looking for, 142 feet or 48 feet?
Right.
You know what I'm saying? If that building is, you're looking for a 50-foot, it's not really a 50-foot variance, you're looking for a 150-foot.
This leach field, it looks like it has a bunch of slopes. It's built up high.
Correct.
The slope, we should be getting our measurement from the end of the slope.
So actually, structure, the definition of structure doesn't include the
Go
slope.
back to the 200 feet. It's 200 feet from the lot line
I
with
understand.
nothing to be built on it.
I understand what you're saying. Your definition of structure in your zoning ordinance does not include the side slopes. It specifically precludes
Right.
the side slopes.
Okay?
No, he's right. Yep.
Okay.
So if you're asking for 142, 150 feet, let us know. Right, but if the distance between point A, whatever the structure is, and that's the closest point, right? So we include
Correct.
overhangs, right? I just want to make sure.
Correct.
Okay. So whatever the closest point is to that line, I want to know what you're asking for. So if it's 200 feet and all you need is 5 feet, 10 feet, 20 feet, then I want to know you're asking for 5, 10, 20.
Understood.
Okay.
But you need to indicate on the plans, because it's very busy, of which zoning ordinance you're referring to.
Yep.
Okay.
Because
I
there's
will,
two-
I mean, in my opinion, we have wetland buffer impacts.
Yeah,
That's one variance we're
that is
requesting.
correct, right.
All the other ones are under the 200-foot
Yeah,
structure.
but I don't, when I'm looking at the plans, I don't know that if you just write down 52 feet.
So we can,
I want to know what
can
zoning
only-
ordinance is referring to, so we can take a look at that and go over and say, God, he's looking for this on this, for the wetlands or whatever, and as opposed to commercial or residential. Do you agree, Mike? It would take us forever to figure.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just for each one of the, yeah, high level, that's fine.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so I want to give you some props too, because we've ripped you down a little bit here. So on ZBA 00, the outline of everything you're looking for, that bottom towards the right, you've got drainage impact, structural impact, wetland,
Right.
parking, septic, wetland buffer, all in square feet. Just take that and convert it into what you want,
Well, actually, I would
or
like,
add to, hold on a second.
add to it.
Or add to it. I mean, it's nice, you're one of the first people to come up and show us what the square footage, so I appreciate it. But really, next to that, or as Roger said, to add to it, I want to know what you're really asking for, because that's where I have to look and make a decision.
understood.
Thank you.
Any other questions, gentlemen?
So my two things that I don't know if you responded to, one was the wetland buffer area that I couldn't find, and the other is that you need to request the variance for the roads, for all of those, that the road is a structure and will be in the, so it needs to be
We were
called out.
advised by town staff that the road was not included in that because you have to access the property.
I don't know which town staff told you that, but whatever it is, it's wrong.
So it's
The road is
Who told
a
you that?
structure.
Ms. Rowden.
Who?
Ms. Rowden clearly says that the road is a structure. On many occasions, I have heard her say the road is a structure.
We can review that with her, but that was our discussion with her. So we'd have to access the property, right?
But I'm not saying that you're not entitled to relief.
Yeah,
I'm saying that you have to call out what relief
My
you're
point-
asking for.
If you follow ZBA regulations currently, we can't access the property
Right,
without
so-
ZBA relief.
yeah.
Is that the intent of the ZBA?
No, the intent is you have to ask us what relief you want, and part of that relief is to put the road in.
Okay.
So you got to tell us what you're going to do, and then we make the judge of the criteria whether or not that variance on that piece should be approved.
Okay.
I'm good.
Yeah, I'm not saying that you're not entitled to relief, but you
Well-
have to call it out.
I mean, the point I was trying to make is
Square footage.
typically
I'm sorry.
the zoning is
The
written
square
so that
footage
you
that
can
he put
actually
in the
access your
impact.
property and use it properly. But and it can be interpreted different ways, of course. And the way you're interpreting it, we have no right to access our property without relief.
That's the way that the land is arranged, right. Without relief, you can't access the property. So that would most likely make you eligible to get some relief.
Okay?
You gentlemen, I have one other question. A resident of Newton brought this over to my house the other day, and I gave the gentleman copies here. It says concrete disposal at CPM McDonough Concrete Disposal, were conveniently located at Puzzle Lane in Newton, New Hampshire, to drop off certain stuff. And I'm looking at the picture that I asked Jim to take a look at, and I see all this debris that's being brought in, but I don't see it any place on the plans that you gave us.
So I guess I don't understand what you're...
Well, my question is that they're disposing of all kinds of stuff coming in from CP McDonough, and I want to know if you look at this map here, is that part of it here? And should that be on the plans we're looking at?
So you want to see the temporary location of piles, storage piles?
Yeah, I think it would be interesting to look and see what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the survey is done at a specific point in time.
Yeah.
If piles come on and piles go off, they're
Yeah.
normally
Okay.
temporary in nature, and we don't normally show those.
And I guess my other question is stuff buried on site, do you know?
I don't know that there's
don't know.
anything
Okay.
buried on site.
All right, thank you. Okay. Are we done, gentlemen?
So I'll ask, you're clear with the measurements, actually what we're looking for? I just
I
want to make sure
believe
you're...
I am.
Okay. That way, when you come back, I just don't want to waste your time, that's why I'm asking.
Absolutely.
Are we all set?
I'm good?
All right. I move to take the application to public hearing on June 1st.
Well, he's still got a lot of information. It may not take him very long to get it done. I think all the hard work's already been done.
Yeah, I don't think it's worth another. I think we understand what the board is looking for, and we can complete it in a quick turnaround. So I don't think it's a preliminary.
So you'll definitely have it to us in time to review before the next meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay. So
So
move,
when does he have to be here, Jim,
Jim?
for us to review?
Yeah.
That would need to be here by noon on the 19th.
Is that
That's 15 days from today.
suit your schedule?
Absolutely.
Okay. A move to take the application to public hearing for June 1st, 2022.
Yes.
Okay. Preliminary hearing is over. Okay.
So we're going to get a new version of this, correct?
Yes.
Yes,
Yep, okay. Yeah,
by the
Give a-
19th.
okay,
I'm just
Do you have a
trying to
second?
purge my filing system.
Oh,
okay.
Home office
Close the
and public
review at
office are getting
7:56 PM.
a little crazy.
Okay, we're
Do
gonna,
we need to vote on that motion?
that we did, we're sorry.
He motioned, Mike second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, gentlemen, sorry about that.
Thank you all
Still a
very much.
learning process here, right? Okay. We have 3 public hearings coming up, and I'd like to go over the format that we use and we require. And number 1 is when people are asked from the public to voice their opinion and so forth, please direct it to the board, not to the applicant. And try not to, if you're the second or third person that speaks, try to keep things different. I know things can get confusing, but anyway. So how it will work is this way, okay, I'm going to make a brief statement of how the process works. We'll have a testimony from the petition who will present the testimony, and then we will, the board will review it, ask questions that we need to. Then eventually we'll have people who are in favor of it, and those that disagree. There'll be rebuttals by the petition. I will read it in detail when we start, but I'm just trying to give you a just kind of a quick overview. And if anybody has any questions on how it's going to be run, please let me know. And that's basically it. So we will call the public hearing at 7:58 of 125 Development, request for public hearings for relief from Section XIV.1, specifically to allow more than one dwelling unit on a lot for their land off Puzzle Lane, Newton, New Hampshire. The properties are referred to as Tax Map 14, Block 1, Lots 2-1.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
I am recusing myself from this case.
Okay.
You're going to want to note that we still have a quorum.
Pardon me?
Note that we still have a quorum.
Yeah. We still have a quorum, yeah. Okay, yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is Barry Geyer. I'm with Jones and Beach Engineers here for the applicant. We're asking for or seeking a variance tonight to section Roman numeral 14.1 of the Newton zoning regs to allow more than one residential unit on a lot. This is actually 2 lots. They're map 14, lots 1-1 and 2. They're located in the southern New Hampshire Industrial Park. Property currently has no frontage. These 2 lots, they're adjacent to open space residential to the north and the light industrial / commercial to the south. The intent is to construct a residential workforce housing project consisting of 55 residential units and 11 buildings to support the industrial park. Current zoning restricts these parcels to not more than one family dwelling per lot. We believe the location is ideal for workforce housing. It is between the open space residential and the light industrial commercial property and is zoned residentially. Project will require site plan approval prior to construction by the planning board. We do have a letter from January 11th that explains how the proposal meets the variance criteria. I'll be happy to go through it with the board if you would like. Otherwise, take any questions the board may have.
Yeah, I just have one question here. Are you reading from a document that we have?
I can read from the document you have.
No, that's the,
So you have a letter from,
The one I'm looking at is March 23rd.
that was the second submittal.
Okay.
The first one that includes the variance criteria was dated January 11th.
This has the variance criteria, okay. Where the hell is it? Okay. I don't seem to have, Jim, do you have that, Jim?
No, he's not reading from a document, he's reading from his notes.
Okay, fine, okay, thank you. Yeah, because there was nothing in here that referred to, as I recall, that it said workforce housing. And that was disturbing when I first read it over. And, because nothing in here is any, are you with me? There's nothing in there about workforce housing, at least in this document that they're asking for. All right?
I think I'm switching the names.
So it's multifamily residential.
Right,
Correct, that's what I see.
yeah. They're cluster housing, basically.
Multifamily residential.
Okay, fine, okay. All right. Gentlemen, any questions?
Do you want to walk us through what your, I mean, so there's a map there, there's people, before I go to public, is there anything you want to walk us through?
Not really. I mean, we do have plans that show the location of the workforce housing, or the multifamily residential. You have the open space residential to the northwest, and the southern New Hampshire industrial park to the south. So these two lots are zoned residential. They're kind of an oddity there. So it's the applicant's opinion that this is a perfect spot to do a transition from the open space residential to the commercial industrial and provide workforce housing, multifamily residential for people that use that, because we all know that everybody needs employees right now, so this is a nice way to foster that.
These are the biggest pain in the butts.
It's a little bit different from what you're probably typically seeing
Yeah.
for a variance, because it's a use variance rather than a dimensional variance.
Yep. And, sorry, let me get my,
Yeah.
how many will this hold? How many,
55 units
55 units?
and 11 buildings.
And each unit will be up, how many residents altogether?
Well, it'll have 61 total bedrooms, if that answers your question.
That's my, yep, thank you.
Any questions from the board?
You're looking for a variance to put these buildings on these lots?
We're looking for a variance that allows us to put more than one unit on the lot. We're asking for 55 residential units on these two lots.
In the town ordinances, it says you need 150 feet of road frontage to have a lot.
Well, no, these two lots are legal lots. They exist.
With no road frontage.
You're right, there is no road frontage.
Right.
But the lots exist, they're legal lots.
Right, so you've already got lots.
Yeah.
The lot's already been determined. You're not, unless I'm wrong, I don't want to put
Okay.
words in your mouth.
In order to move forward, Frank, they're going to have to get the
Right.
two lots.
So the lots already exist, am I correct?
Yep.
Is what you're saying?
Two lots exist, we're not creating additional lots.
Right.
Correct.
The zoning regulations for Newton indicate that we can only put one residential unit on each lot. We're asking for more.
And your intention is to merge those two lots, correct?
Correct.
Right, okay. Go ahead. And I'm looking at Howard Lane here, and I see this, it looks like a road that goes out to the cul-de-sac there. Exactly what is that? Is that a right-of-way?
So you're looking at the end of Howard Lane?
That is correct,
Well-
right.
That, we're not talking about that lot, but That is proposed emergency access from Howard Lane
Okay.
to the proposed Phase 2 roadway. And that's in front of the planning board at the moment.
Yeah, all right.
Oh, coming off the cul-de-sac. Okay, I see what you're saying.
Wow.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah. What do you think, then? You want to turn it over to the public? You want to look for a minute, Mike? Yeah. God, I hate these damn things. Yeah,
That's going to be gated road.
That's what they're saying.
and wetlands and shit.
What's that?
I'm just talking aloud to myself, Mike. Yeah.
So that'll be a gated road, in other words.
So what-
Gated access, I should
Yeah,
say.
what we're proposing is a crash gate, so it's only for emergency access.
Or with a knock box for the police or fire or whatever.
The intent is if our main access is blocked, that they could, emergency could access through this.
The intent won't ever be to connect that, though, because that would be a nightmare.
Absolutely not.
Okay.
I mean, it's kind of beyond the scope of this project, or this discussion, but it's only 12 foot wide.
Okay.
It's an existing right-of-way, and we're hoping to be able to connect and
In the-
provide additional security.
And the road leading down to it, or the access leading down to it, is the intent for that to ever be a town road, or is it always, because you gotta
Industrial-
meet town requirements if that's the,
Correct.
down the road, if that's what you wanna do.
Well, we're building it to town road
But that, I
standards.
guess that was my question,
Yeah.
okay.
So we are building it to town road
Town
standards,
standards,
but
okay.
they don't have any intention to make it a public road in the
Okay.
Approved? That's better. Okay, yeah, no, I just answered my question. Okay.
Mike, they go, Mike, is right here. See these buildings? Boom, boom, boom. That's only part of them, okay? If you look at that map right there, it shows them all, okay?
No, I understand
See what
that.
I'm saying?
Yeah,
Kind of goes up and around.
It's from the fire department.
but,
On vacation.
but he's only out, this is the only,
And
He's
this-
on the table
this
right
is-
now.
This is all residential here.
Is that
See
if
I
that?
understand
it
that.
wasn't gonna be a throughway,
But this is the piece
And
that's
it
on
would
the
be gated.
table. This great area right now.
So on the request for variances, if you're looking at, I'm looking at ZBA 1, I think that's the right one. And I'm looking at, these must be, all this residential area right here. Are those all included in the variances?
So this variance includes 2 lots.
Okay.
The 2 hatch lots, if you're looking at ZBA 1.
I understand that. I said, but if you, okay, all right. So your intention is, okay, these maps, but these other places over here, if you give it to you, they're going to be very close to Sergeant Woods, correct?
Those lots exist close to Sergeant Woods, yes, which are residential.
Right, okay. So if we gave you the okay for those lots to build more than one, but you would need variances before they're okayed, correct?
We're requesting a variance to
Yeah,
build
to
these.
put them, I understand, to put them on, but if we say okay and you start building those, you're gonna need another variance, because you gotta be within a 200-foot setback.
No, the lots, the property that we're talking about,
Yeah.
those 2 lots are actually zoned residential, which is one of the reasons we're proposing this
Okay, all right, so
residential
those,
on
I'm
those
looking at the
lots.
map wrong, I guess, okay, from the, okay. I thought this was, see, this is Mike here, what are these right here?
right?
Yeah.
Okay. Aren't these buildings right here?
Still residential.
They are, but they're residential.
Okay, yeah. Is right, so that's right, so you don't need the two, you don't need the, okay, I'm with you, okay, all right. That's what it is, because they're already residential, okay. I don't have any more questions.
No, I don't have any right now.
No, I'm good.
We all set down there? Okay.
For now.
All right. Now, what the hell do I do this thing here? Wait, what the hell do I do with my other thing here? Okay. Well, I guess you're all set. If any of the residents or abutters would like to look at the plans and take a look before we start opening up to the public, you can walk up there and take a few minutes and take a look. Yeah.
So he bought these? He bought these lots?
We didn't really ask a lot of questions, did we? Yeah. I don't know, Mike. Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Let them look, at least to get an idea. Yeah.
I can't hear a word you're saying. I'm profoundly deaf.
I sent an email.
What does that say?
Yes, I saw.
It's already resolved.
I sent it to the town moderator.
That's right, yeah, I forgot about that. That's right. That's why it doesn't need the 200-foot. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Mr. Chairman? We need to keep moving.
That book, yeah, okay. Give Roger 2 more minutes.
You should be on page 2.
Right here. So we're at number 7. You agree? Okay. What do you think, Mike?
Give it a minute. They have every right to get an understanding.
Yeah. Yeah. Did you read Roger's thing? Mm-hmm. Huh? Pretty powerful. Yeah. The engineers, they let them help answer a couple of questions.
Yep.
This affects a lot of people, you know?
Bruins are losing 2-0.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Why did you have to tell me that?
I know. That just ruined my night.
Up there with people, explaining things to them slowly without the board able to hear and understand.
Yeah.
Want me to do it?
Yeah, you want to go up and tell them, yeah. Yeah.
So team,
Hello?
we're gonna give you 1 more minute, and then we're gonna need you to sit down, okay?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Now, I'll be seated, please. We'll continue on.
Open it and tell them to come up one at a time if they have to direct us.
Could I have your attention, please? In the testimony of those in favor of the application, each speaker shall identify themselves, state their address, and how they are involved with the applicant. Board members may ask questions to clarify. Do I have anybody in favor that would like to speak? Well, how about those? Yes, okay.
Is it possible?
Come up,
have to go
sir,
to the
please, and give
microphone.
your name and address and how this affects you or involved.
Okay, my name's Ray Rogalski. I live at 14 Balsam Way,
Speak up a little bit, please.
Sergeant Woods.
Okay.
Been in the construction business many years. My question to you, I'm not going to get into all this stuff right now. Since we're a major abutter of this place, I believe 115 units, so maybe 200-300 people directly involved. Can we get a set of drawings like this to have at our community center? Because a lot of people just can't be coming here, you know what I'm getting at? So, without cost, by the way, so that we can go over these at the community center. An educated mind is the best way to go. I don't care if it's somebody that's retired 10 years. And I'm very impressed with you guys at the table here,
Well, thank you.
but we're not seeing what you're looking at. We're not seeing what this gentleman here is looking at.
That's
And-
why I wanted them to give up and take
Right.
it. Everything is right there. We're just looking at multiple
Absolutely.
pages that are blown up.
And in the future, I would recommend a PowerPoint presentation here. You've got a screen. This gentleman here must have access to a nice computer. You're pulling up drawings, at least get your laser pointer out, and educate us. Because if this gets hot and heavy, it's going to be either by ignorance, okay, because we don't know enough, or, you know, other possibilities. And what you guys do here, because it's a big project, is going to set precedent for the town of Newton, the classic little, almost fairy tale town that you've got here, okay? And you're changing the whole appearance, the beauty of the town in what you've got here. I used to live in Danvers, which was a beautiful country town, okay? And now it's become a small cosmopolitan area. And it's baby steps, just like you guys are doing here. And I'm not saying you can't do these things. Obviously, you can. But think of the environmental impacts. You know, do you want it to become more like a city like Plaistow with beautiful houses and then, you know, multiple apartment buildings, you know, and all the traffic and everything that comes with it? Just everybody think about all this stuff as we proceed here. I understand, you know, I can tell just by living up here for 3 years now, everybody needs tax dollars, let's face it, and it would be nice to get the money, but just please, everybody here, just think about the longer-term repercussions. I know me, myself, and a lot of other people, we might not even be around by the time this project is done, but just think of the charm of your town and where we're headed with all this, and just make sure everything's done nice. You talk about parking lots. We got water tables to consider. We have water supplies to be considered. If we talk drainage, it's not simply showing a sewer on a plot. Make sure you understand the design of the sewer system, especially in a parking lot. Make sure it has oil separators in it. Make sure you have water monitoring. Okay, make sure everything is pitched properly. It's not just a little square that says, oh, we're going to put 50 parking spaces here. Make sure you know all the topography, everything that's going on here, because their problem will be our problem eventually. And that's all I'm getting at. Let's do this right, okay? So everybody comes out, you know, this guy gets his thing, he uses his constitutional rights and state rights to build, you know, the rules are the rules. Let's do it right, guys. You know?
Just a comment, sir. I think it's great. You should go to the planning board and pass it on, because what we're doing is minor. All those other things you're talking about,
Right.
the water table and so forth, that's up to the planning board.
And you know, when we talk about wetlands, has anyone done a wetland study? What do you got for frogs and turtles and everything else? And it's not just about the animal life. What type of vegetation do you have going there? You know? Security for Sergeant Woods. I mean, I was telling one of my neighbors today, I bet you if I took one of those wheels and went around the property, you know, we'd probably get 2 miles of borderless property. There are no walls, there's nothing. So I would like to see what type of fencing or security is going to be in this situation, especially where we're abutters, you know? So anyhow, I'm going to make a lot of work for everybody if I can. But I just, you know, and if you don't want my, you know, input, that's fine, because I can be a pain in your butt. But I'm willing to share my experience, the good stuff that we all did for the last 40-odd years in construction and what we learned, and maybe help everybody out to do it right. Make everybody proud.
Thank you
okay?
very much. Is there anybody out there else that's in favor of this project?
These, there's more distance.
Well, we'll turn to testimony of those opposed, and basically the same thing. Please give your name and address and how you were involved with this application, please.
Good evening. I am Roger Hamill. I live at 17 Spruce Lane, Newton, New Hampshire, which is part of the Sergeant Woods condominium, which abuts the property under consideration. I am here only as myself, an abutter and member of the public. I am not here as a member of the ZBA. I am participating in this case only at those times reserved for abutters or public comment. I will read this prepared statement and ask that a copy be included in the official record of the public hearing. General comments. This application is incomplete because it does not request all of the variances that would be required for the project, as noted by the building inspector, and it lacks other critical information. The proposed development is spread over 2 lots, with one building, building number 7, straddling the lot line. It is, at the very least, these 2 lots should be merged into one to facilitate the assessing of the property. The applicant has stated that it is their intent to merge the 2 lots before seeking site approval from the planning board. Wetland buffer. The plan shows a significant amount of work within the wetland buffer. On pages 5, 6, 7, and 8, they propose that the roadway will extend into the 50-foot wetland buffer. On pages 5 and 7, drainage basins are in the wetland buffer. And on page 5, a portion of the drainage basin is in the wetland. This is in addition to the 2 wetland crossings that are required for the road. Wetlands are very important to protect our groundwater. The requirement of the wetland buffers are critical to protecting this very fragile resource. Though some wetland crossings may be required for any development of these 2 lots, the plan as presented does not minimize the potential for harm to the wetlands and therefore is contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. Aquifer watershed protection. A large portion of the site sits on top of a major aquifer in town. Protection of this aquifer is of vital importance to protect the quantity and quality of the groundwater drinking supply. In addition to the roadway proposed, there is 153 parking spaces. This will result in a very high load of salt, oil, and grease running off the impervious surface. Other activities that are reasonably expected to occur in a residential parking lot, such as a car washing and minor auto repair, will also add to the potential for polluted runoff. The greater additional stress to this vital resource is therefore contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. Access. The 2 existing lots are landlocked. It is not clear to me if the developer is planning to have a portion of Puzzle Lane and Coleman Place to be dedicated as public roads. If it is a private road, then there needs to be a request for additional variances to allow for building without public road frontage. They would also need to demonstrate deeded access and enforceable driveway maintenance agreements. If they plan for a portion of Puzzle Lane in a residential zone to be a public road, then they would need to subdivide so that it does not exist on two sides of a public road. They also need to provide details on how Puzzle Lane, shown on the plan, would be connected to the end of Puzzle Lane on the other side of Lot 14-1-27-7, which is at this time a private driveway. The plan states that no development will occur in Plaistow, and therefore no approval is required from Plaistow. The overall plan shows an extension of the proposed Puzzle Lane through Plaistow before coming out on Route 108. This road extension is not part of the proposal, and the only access to the 55 residential units would be one very long dead-end driveway or road through the industrial park. I suggest that this very limited access to a tightly packed multifamily development is a public health and safety concern and is therefore contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. Density issue. The proposal is for 55 residential units with 1 or 2 bedrooms on a total of 20.05 acres of land. The total number of bedrooms is not listed in the application. The lot size for a residential A zone is 60,000 square feet based on the model subdivision regulations for soil-based lot size. The cluster development ordinance requires a calculation of the soil-based carrying capacity of the entire parcel. These requirements are to protect the public health and safety of the community. Newton has neither public water nor public sewer. The only way to protect the groundwater resources of our town is to limit the development to not exceed the soil-based carrying capacity of the soil. The developer did not submit any evidence that the soils on this parcel could support 55 units on 20.05 acres, with a large portion of the parcel covered in wetlands. The purpose of the zoning bylaw is to promote the health, safety, welfare, and convenience of the inhabitants. By not showing that the 55 units could be safely carried by the soils presented on the parcel, the developer's proposal fails to demonstrate that the proposal observes the spirit of the ordinance and is not contrary to the public interest. Character of the neighborhood. The developer states that the location is between the industrial development and an open space cluster development, and they believe that the project would not alter the essential character of the neighborhood. The developer is wrong. Sergeant Woods Condominium is a 55-plus community consisting of 115 well-spaced single-family units spread over 92.79 acres. The proposed development would place 11 large 27.5 feet by 74 foot multifamily buildings directly across the lot line behind some of these well-spaced units at Sergeant Woods. This definitely affects the essential character of the neighborhood and is therefore contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. The location of sufficient parking, especially in the area of Building 7 through 11, would significantly change the character of the neighborhood. The abutting residential property are single-family units with a maximum of 2 parking spaces in each driveway. Again, the visual appearance of dense parking will definitely affect the essential character of the neighborhood and is therefore contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. The developer provided floor plans for 2 model buildings from KBS Builders Incorporated. Both are 27.5 feet by 74 feet. One building style contains 5 one-bedroom units. The other building style contains 2 two-bedroom units and 2 one-bedroom units. The buildings resemble mobile homes stuck together. They are in stark contrast to the traditional single-family homes that are in Sergeant Woods. Again, the low-end architecture will definitely affect the essential character of the neighborhood and is therefore contrary to the public interest and does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. Workforce housing. The applicant makes several references to workforce housing, but he fails to show that Newton has not already met the requirements of RSA 674.59 Roman 3 to provide its fair share of workforce housing. Newton does not have a specific ordinance section titled workforce housing, but it has several existing multifamily properties, including one that was approved in 2021. The accessory apartment ordinance provides many rental units and provides for the creation of more if there is a need in the future. The cluster development ordinance provides a lower cost option for developers to create new residential units without adversely affecting the town. The developer has not provided information to show that the development meets the definition of workforce housing in RSA 674.58 Roman 1 through 4. Workforce housing must meet the definition of affordable, and more than 50% of the dwellings must have at least 2 bedrooms. If these units will be rentals, how will the applicant ensure that the units will remain affordable? The applicant has provided no information concerning affordability. Given the floor plans submitted, there appears to be not sufficient 2-bedroom units to qualify for workforce housing. Commercial venture. Lot 14.1.2 and 1-1 are zoned residential A. The construction of a 55-unit apartment complex is not consistent with residential neighborhoods. This type of use would be more consistent with a commercial neighborhood. Again, this project would change the character of the neighborhood and therefore does not observe the spirit of the ordinance. Value of surrounding properties. The applicant did not present any evidence about the effects on the value of the surrounding properties. Several of the proposed buildings are very close to the existing units at Sergeant Woods. Some are just beyond the required setback from the lot line. The submitted plans do not accurately depict the existing buildings at Sergeant Woods. The plans appear to show a very old proposal for Sergeant Woods that was approved but never built. The houses in Sergeant Woods closest to the lots under consideration were built in 2012 and 2013. The plats recorded at the Registry of Deeds. The presence of multifamily buildings just behind and close to the existing Sergeant Woods units and the low-end design of the buildings would most likely have a negative impact on some property values in Sergeant Woods. The developer has not met the value of surrounding properties standard. Hardship. The developer states that multifamily workforce housing is a reasonable use for this property. That may be true, but the intensity of this proposed development is not a reasonable use. A scaled-down proposal may satisfy the hardship standard. Also, the fact that the property is landlocked may justify some type of relief for this property. But again, the density of the proposal is far greater than required for relief in a fair and substantial way. Cluster development ordinance may offer another alternative for developing the residential potential of these lots. A scaled-down proposal may satisfy this item of the hardship standard. I believe that as presented, this proposal does not meet the hardship standard. Substantial justice. Considering the previously detailed concerns, the harm to the general public and other individuals outweigh the benefits to the developer. Substantial justice would require that the variances be denied. Though some of the deficiencies and concerns could be addressed by placing conditions on the variances. Others should require a complete new application. Therefore, I request that you deny the requested variances. Thank you.
Mr. Chair, would you ask the speaker to supply a copy of that, needless to say?
I'm sorry, what?
Would you ask the speaker to supply a copy of that?
Yes, yeah, we need a copy of that for a record, Sir Roger. Thank you.
Electronically would be really nice. An
Are there any
electronic
other
copy would be
members of the public?
Hold a second.
I'm sorry.
You're going to want to take a physical copy now,
Yeah.
so that if anybody questions you.
Well, I have the tape, so,
Gotcha.
Okay.
and I know Mr. Hamill is good for sending it to me.
I know. I just want to make sure
Yes,
the
sir.
public.
I request a copy of his statement for Sergeant Wood, along with it.
You can ask.
It requested from him the, yeah.
We have a copy of what you just stated here for Sergeant Wood.
I will make copies at the end of the evening.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak in opposition? Sir, take the podium, please, your name and address and how you're involved.
Good evening, I'm Robert LaBelle. I've been in Newton for about 10 years. I live in home 74, which is probably the closest to all of this. It's 9 Hemlock. And I just want to start off by saying the first gentleman and the last gentleman spoke really summed it up nicely. I'm glad I live in a little town where I can speak to neighbors. And, you know, this is a plea. I came here thinking, gee, I'm going to ask if they're going to turn that dirt road into a truck convoy to build this thing wherever it is. And how noisy is it going to be? How long is it going to last? What about those wetlands? Do I need to go to state fish and game and see if there's anything there? You know, but then I'm thinking, okay, well, they're probably going to build it. Although now I see this thing is literally right in my backyard. And it's not just me, it's the whole Sergeant Woods community. And then I further hear, it kind of looks like a trailer park. Don't do it. Think about your backyard and how you'd like something like this coming along. And, you know, at least keep us involved in the process and let us know how we can add input to your decision. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else would like to speak in opposition? Okay. Would you like, I'm sorry, sir. Okay.
Good evening. Mr. Hamill's a tough act to follow, but I'll do my best. My name is Steve Beck, 20 Ridgewood Road in Plaistow. I'm at the meeting tonight because I was notified because of the item 1 on tonight's agenda. But while I'm here, I have the right to comment on this. This particular variance that's in front of you is for the workforce housing. That workforce housing is 55 units. Those 55 units will require water. This entire project as a whole is over an aquifer. We, over in Plaistow, in Greenfield and Greenfield Hill Estates, are in a community water system that is regulated by the state DES. As a community water system, we obviously have to monitor our water usage. Adding this phase of the project with 55 people pulling water from the aquifer, the expanded project as a whole pulling water from the aquifer, eventually could have an impact. And that's all I ask as a representative, as a butter, that you take that into consideration of the, the impact on the aquifer. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Beck? Yes. Can I have your name again?
B-E-C-H-T.
Is there any other members of the public that are opposed? State your name and address and
Yeah, my name is Larry Cochran, 11 Oak Hill Drive in Sergeant Woods. And I had even a couple of questions. Is this workforce housing only for people that work there? Or do outsiders come in and rent there?
that's the real definition of workforce housing, yes.
Who controls that? And
Yeah.
How do the school buses get in there?
Pardon me, sir?
How does a school bus get in there for the children? No, do they have entrances, or can they go on private property?
That's,
Oh, there's no kids? What if someone has 2 or 3 kids? They live there. What do they do with their kids?
It's for the workforce housing for the project. We're trying to give a place to stay for people.
so are you saying you're turning it
Project is
into
done,
a
what happens?
commercial?
What happens when the project is done?
So it sounds like a commercial project.
And that goes away?
It's workforce housing, is what it is. You know how many people are here right now?
Yeah.
Excuse me?
But that wouldn't be true, but the definition of workforce housing, that would not be the definition. Yeah,
I'm saying it's for the people in the parks, however you want to name it.
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
can we please stop the discussion and go back to our...
I'm sorry, yes, okay.
Okay, those are just a few of my concerns, and like I say, I don't think these type of units are good for the residential area.
Yeah, thank you. Any other, ma'am, I'm sorry. Okay. State your name, address, and,
Yeah, my name is Dan Sweeney, 11 Howard Lane, and I understand all the Sergeant Woods people, but we're the spear point on the other end, and the whole bit is water, congestion, it's just a mess completely. We've been dealing with this for years, and it's time to go away. So we'll continue the fight and see what happens. Thank you very much.
thank you. Ma'am, please state your name and address, please.
Linda Rapucci, 2 Cedar Lane in Sergeant Woods, Newton. You know, we moved here 8 years ago to be in a small community with lots of woods and lots of trees behind us. What I'm seeing here is, you know, a transient type community with architecture that is not really conducive to which abuts us. I mean, our homes are very well gone up in value from when we bought 8 and 9 years ago, and I can see the value of the homes going completely down. When we pull into our little small street of 4 homes, I see nothing but woods, and that's what I moved here for. And to have to watch over the last 8 years all the building that's gone on through the trees, throughout any neighborhood in Sergeant Woods, they're all looking at buildings, steel buildings. We're hearing tractors and trucks at all hours, and it's not what we moved here for. I think it's not what the 115 people in Sergeant Woods moved here for as well. I know the manufacturing is here to stay, but I'm really disappointed in the fact that these homes are going to hold probably a lot of transient or rental people. I'm worried about the security. They can walk right through our wood line. And, you know, that's what I'm most concerned about, too. And we have a lot of people that do live alone there. So I think the best interest is to try to keep it the way we started and not have all the additional building going on, especially the housing now. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else? Would you like to have a rebuttal for many of the comments that are made from the public?
I will say we appreciate the comments made by the public. Obviously, we don't agree with all of them. We did provide the board with the criteria for the variance. If you want to discuss that, I'd be more than happy to discuss it or answer any questions the board has.
Yeah. Well, I'm really curious now that is this a commercial project or is it residential?
It's residential. People will be living in these units.
But just for the people that are working there, that's what I understand.
The intent
That's
is
why
to-
there'll be no kids there.
The intent is to limit it to the people that are working in the industrial,
Wouldn't you
commercial.
refer to that as a commercial project?
If it has residential people
It's
living in it,
residential.
it's a residence.
That's residential.
By
You can't
definition, it's
argue that.
residential.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. So the intent, that's an interesting word. So the intent is for it to be for the people that are in the industrial park.
And if the board decides to make that a condition of approval, that's up to the board. But it is the intent to limit it to the people that work in the park, because people that own the businesses in the park, they're having trouble getting employees. There is a proposal for additional buildings. Those people need, places to live. That is the intent.
So, this is probably a stupid question. So if somebody loses their job, you boot them out?
This is a possibility.
I mean, that's
Most
difficult.
likely there's
I
gonna
understand what you're trying to do, but,
There most likely would be a provision in the lease that says, maybe after your lease is up.
is it a condition that you have to work there in order to live there or whatever? Huh, interesting. All right.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes.
you may want that to be checked through legal.
I'm sorry, what?
You may want to,
Yeah.
that last bit checked through legal. There was something signed back in 1862 that prevented you from having your workers live in your housing on property.
That was a,
I'm sorry, while I am the
okay, no,
AA
I'm
here.
I'm not privy to that, but anyway, it was 18 what?
Well, I'm not certain that you can restrict who you rent to.
Yeah.
That's
Right.
where that's why I said the intent, and that's what I'm
Yeah.
trying to go
Right.
back to my, I'd have to
You're
go look
thinking
it
the
up,
same way, Mike? Yeah.
law, right? We all have intent, but at the end of the day, I don't think you can restrict only to those that are in that industrial park. And I don't want to make a statement because I need to go back and research that. But that's a question in my mind right now,
Okay.
from a legal standpoint.
Also fair housing.
I'm sorry, what?
I didn't think of that.
Yeah.
I was going a different road, but
Right,
yes.
the same thing.
Yep.
It's certainly something that we probably shouldn't, and who knows?
So there was some, are we done? Is there anybody else? I don't want to stop, but are we done? We good? Before I make a statement?
Public all done making comments?
This is awful.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
So to the board, I'm going to address this to the board.
Buildings.
I have some,
Okay.
I have more concerns. Trish, I'm gonna lean on you because of your background
Okay.
to the wetlands, to the aquifer.
Excuse me, Mike, I need to close the public hearing.
Sorry, yes.
That's okay. Is it time we're going to close the public hearing so the board will discuss, and then we're going to go through the criteria and make a decision. So, Mike, go ahead.
Yeah, so I before, a couple things. One, I don't want to make a decision without a little bit more input. So
Right.
some of the concerns that were brought up, I'm not disagreeing with or agreeing with. I just think we need to talk about that, number one. Something else that came to me as we were going through this, as all these concerns, and we are only a zoning adjustment board. And the oil separation, the water tables, everything, I'll go back to originally when we brought this in front of us. I thought this should have gone in front of the planning board first.
Right.
At the same time, I have respect for development, right? You guys have rights. You have, and that's very clear. You have rights to develop and do what you want, and that may not be in the most fruitful eye of the public, and I apologize to you. You've bought your land, and they have their land, and they have their rights. But I do have concerns, and I'm not sure tonight's the night, that I would be comfortable making a decision without some more research. So I'm just going to leave it there for now. And I would be okay if it's okay with the developer, that we push this for a month to do some more research on everything that was brought up. And I'll leave it there for my comments. Thank you.
I want to. Mr. Chair,
Yes,
you have the right to continue
yeah,
for deliberation of the next
yes,
meeting.
if you're not comfortable with voting on it tonight, and we can continue till next month, is that what everybody wants to do? That's saying that we're gonna do some homework and get involved with
Yep.
this now.
As long as people are okay if I say that I think it should go back in front of the planning board as well. to start.
I definitely think, Mike, that's why I wrote this up, and you might want to read it, number 2. You might read that out loud, something we might want to consider.
So for consideration, no finding. The zoning board of appeals can find, in fact, that whereas no hardship exists in recognizing the importance of the constitutional rights to enjoy property, and in light of the New Hampshire Supreme Court conclusion of Bartlett versus City of Manchester, 164, New Hampshire, 634, 635, 2013, that the mere filing of variance application does not limit the ZBA's ability to determine where the applicant's proposed use of property requires the variance. The ZBA recommends that the applicant look into possibility of subdivision of the land or a cluster development to be applied to the planning board in whose purpose these matters belong. Okay. So I would,
So this is another avenue we could do, as opposed to even voting to get it out of our privy. You know, I think that's what.
I think it's gonna end up in front of them.
Yeah, I think that's what the building inspector said, that it should have gone, even though the variance, but this whole thing should have never come to us instead of going to the planning board.
And I mean, to add to that and what Mike said, typically, when it would go to the planning board, conservation would then get involved with, we'd do, soil tests, we'd worry about the water, we'd worry about some of the places where these structures are, they could possibly be moved, number one, to keep them, give more setbacks to not only
Yes.
Sergeant Wood, but for the wetlands, and some of the roadways, and even the wetland impacts and soil separators. We would be commenting on all of that, and where they are in relation to wells and our,
so in that context, when you would be talking about that, you would be giving recommendations, and based on that, that would then come back in front of the zoning board of appeals with all that encompassed, and then we can talk about variance based off of
right,
recommendations, studies, and facts.
right.
Then I need,
We should talk
I
about
would,
this.
I would move to option 2 of no finding. I'll leave it at that, that's my finding.
And Frank has,
And this whole problem with everybody here, they have a problem with building 7, 8, and 9. If you can relocate them somewhere else, away from Sergeant
Wood.
Woods,
Somebody will second
I think everybody in the room would be happy.
Because it does say go back to the planning board.
Yeah.
Because there's a big distance
Yeah.
over the rest of the,
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir, go ahead.
I want to approach your question last, but
Yeah.
the first question regarding planning board or ZBA, we have to start somewhere.
somewhere, yep.
So right now, we're not allowed by your zoning to do a multifamily residential project on these properties. Correct? Per your zoning.
Correct.
Correct.
We're asking for that right. Once we obtain that right, or do not, then we go to planning board where we show the specifics that are required for the project, which include stormwater, drainage, septic systems, wells,
Water consumption.
parking lots.
Yep.
All that information is under the purview of the planning board via a site plan approval. But the planning board is not the place to ask for the use. We're asking for a change in the use that is precluded by your zoning regulations currently. So we're in front of the zoning board.
And I could say,
That makes sense.
in theory, right, I could say yes. We're gonna have to do some research on this for you. So in theory, I could say, yes, you can have the variance. But the problem that we're having
Planning board.
is the impact, which goes back to the planning board of all the studies. So if I give you the variance with dimensions attached to it, then I don't have the information to do that.
But
Well, let me just finish, and then I'll let you speak. I'm not trying to be rude. So with respect, I'm in business development, I get it. But if there's a way to come in front of us to say, I just want permission for this piece of property to put multiple families on this, with the catch that it has to be sent through the planning board and then back to you if there's any variances. And I haven't found that yet. Because I think that's what you're really looking for, which is you want the use of the property, which needs to be approved, to then go in front of the planning board, to then studies, right? We can't commission those studies, and that would be the proper process, so that when it comes to us, all this other questioning's off the table, and now what you're asking for is, I need 50 feet here or 75 feet here. It doesn't impact the watershed, it doesn't impact, or here's how it impacts. And now we have answers. My problem tonight is I don't have answers. And I'll let you speak.
So back to, I totally understand that, but most of that stuff is under the purview of the planning board, not the zoning board.
Correct.
So that's the
But if I give
appropriate place.
it to you,
Hiccup.
once I give you the variance, once we give you the variance for that piece of property,
Right.
you don't need to go in front of a planning board. You don't need to do anything.
Oh, that's totally incorrect.
Nope.
We have,
Once I give it, stop for a second, think about it. You can then change the use of the land.
you're
can
changing, if you voted in the affirmative,
If I give you we, not me, I'm sorry. If the
the
board.
royal we, the board.
The board, I want to make legal corrections here. If the board gives you permission, says here, walk away, here's the variances. 60 days later, you decide, that's not the project we're going to go with, we want something else. Those variants still stick.
And how would that impact negatively? So,
Because we don't know,
so we
once
have,
I give you the variances, I don't know the impact to that wetland, to the aquifer. I haven't got the answers that I wanted, and now it's open for, I've got the variance, I can go
So-
wherever I want.
as Mr. Hamill indicated, we're not asking currently for variances for the wetland impacts or wetland buffer impacts. Because we haven't done the completed design for these, which would be submitted to the planning board, at which time we would have those answers, right? Which is under the purview of the planning board. The wetland impacts are under the purview of the zoning board, which we would have to come back for. We agree with that. But if we were proposing to do a commercial project on this site, we would have to come to the zoning board because it's not allowed.
Right.
So we wouldn't design the commercial site until we knew we had the right to design the commercial site, because that's just throwing money out. So we're in here asking, can we do multifamily residential? And we put a number out there of 55 units. And if the board says yes, we still have to jump through every hoop that the planning board puts in front of us. The planning board could turn around and say, 55 is too much. We were only approved this for 40. They have that right. They could say it doesn't fit, just like they could say for any other project that comes before the planning board. They could
Yep.
say the traffic is too much, the stormwater is
This
too
gives them a
much.
temporary outlet.
They have that right, but you're giving us the right to at least to make the next step.
We deny it, that's only one bite at the apple.
I understand what he's saying.
No, that's why I'm trying not to
And
do
Mr.
a
Gibbs,
denial.
back to what you're asking, once we get to that point at the planning board, if we decide that those buildings have to shift, that would be at the
Planning board level?
Right, but we've already gave you the okay
Are
on
you
this
in
set of plans.
deliberations, or
So
did
you
you
No,
don't,
you're not
open the
approving
public
plans,
hearing?
sir.
We're in deliberation.
You're giving us the
he
right
can't
to
speak.
construct. The plans are just a visual for you to understand what
What you're
we're
doing.
proposing.
You know?
You're only approving the
I'm just gonna
variance, which
speak
gives us the right. It's not like it's not a dimensional variance where we're saying we want to be 55 feet away when we have to be 100 feet away. It's a totally different animal.
It's an uncomfortable animal.
Thank you.
It's uncomfortable,
I have to get my head around this a bit.
but I get what he's saying.
Mr. Hamel?
Seeing that you allowed the developer to speak,
Yeah.
I asked to speak again. But the problem is, you can't judge the appropriateness of a use unless you know what the impact of that use is going to be. And without knowing what the impact of that use is, I believe you cannot approve a use. Because otherwise, you're approving something that you have no idea what the impact is. That's the basic reason why I think that it is imperative that you deny this application.
Give him an out.
And that, yes, basically, what the developer needs to do is to go and speak to the planning board for their informal review and ask them what's acceptable, and then move forward from there. But I think for this board, at this time, you have to deal with the plan that you have in front of you. And that plan is an inappropriate use for that land.
So we could deny
I
it.
still think it should be continued so we could do more research and the planning board get involved.
So,
You want to go through the criteria?
Yeah, if this,
say that, you're gonna
No.
say that's what it is.
right,
That's
that
what
would
we
be okay.
approve.
so,
No,
Right,
move
By-
the buildings.
you're right.
By denying it, if we deny it, then he'd have to go back to the planning board to get it redesigned and try to figure out how those buildings are going to work. If we make a motion to basically what I had Mike read a few moments ago, that would force him to go back to the planning board. Because if we deny it, it has to be a new set of plans, only one bite at the apple. That's it. This is what we have to decide.
yep, so.
We haven't read the criteria yet, but I think that's the general feeling anyway before we go any further, you know? I'm just saying if we deny it. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just going to say that I think before we tell them to go, before we give the denial, I would suggest a no finding, and we do a little bit more with our legal to one, if the only, I want to make sure it's very clear. If the, and I'm only speaking to the board, if it's multifamily usage, right, that we can say, because this is kind of different than what's been in front of us in the past, yes to it, and then I want to make sure the process is it has to go back through planning board, come back to us for any variances, public weighs in, and that we come back to a conclusion of, you know, the way, unfortunately, the way this country's going is you're going to see a lot more multifamilies. And as you see developments, as we see in Salem, New Hampshire, with their developing that whole,
But Mike, that's where you're on. This is not open to the public, right?
right, we have to be open to
Yeah.
the multifamily,
Right.
things are going to happen.
We really have to be.
As prices increase in houses, we have to think about this. So I don't want to come out and say no, because I don't want them to have to go back unless they have to the drawing board. But I think it's important that we
Well,
come with a
just-
no finding until we get better facts and some guidance and understand how it goes back through. I'll leave it there.
If we go through the criteria and we vote the denial, you can go back, because it's the bite of the apple, those plans are dead in the water.
Yep.
And I think that's what I'd like to see, right now. I'm not trying to push it or whatever. But at least it gives us, it's got to go back to the planning board. This here says it also has to go back to the planning board, one of the two.
Right.
So we leave it as it is, and let's go back to the planning board to do what? The few things we have to find out, first of all, it sounds like only residents that are working there are going to be able to use those buildings and not outside. So the idea of workforce housing is really, not really workforce housing, it's basically for the companies that are working there, right? That's the way I understand it, you know?
That's the definition.
So what do we want to go through the criteria and vote? Or do we want to, this comment that okay. And so where do we go from there, I think, after that?
You do have the option to continue to the next meeting
Yes.
if you don't believe you can
Okay.
come to a conclusion this evening.
Okay.
Yeah, I feel like that's what we need to do.
Need to move it to next month?
Yeah, and maybe conservation can do a little research as well.
Okay.
You know, and the water usage. I mean, there's many Sergeant Woods people here. There was a time when we were against Sergeant Woods being developed because we were worried about our water. So we adjusted to that. We got information from the state to find out water usage and how we could handle it. So it would be the same type of thing. We could check into this, 55 units, how many gallons per person. That's what we had to figure out with Sergeant Woods. So there's a lot of things in the wetlands. And like Frank said, moving these would be huge. Building 7, 8, 9, is that?
7, 8, and 9, building 7, 8,
Yeah.
and 9. If you could move them away from Sergeant Woods, there would be plenty of buffer between them.
And I think that would be a good idea.
And I would look at it a lot differently.
And I think that helps for some of the residents, but I would still want, for my answers, the impact to the
Right.
aquifer and to the wetlands and
Sure.
things like that. So I want to take Frank's into consideration if they can be moved, but also I'm more interested, before I look at that, is the impacts.
Right.
Quick question for Roger, maybe. Is that RV parking way down on the long road? Or is that a house? Down by number 10? Building 10, I think is,
You know, Mike, this is
Down here.
all these issues that Roger brought up, boy, I'll tell you.
These
They
plans
Can't
are
be
wrong.
corrected by law.
Okay.
okay.
That is, if you look, okay, well, this I got off
But I'm just,
Okay.
the Registry of
things
Deeds
that are important.
website.
We should-
Okay.
In that area. So now,
Well,
as a,
Building 7, 8, and 9.
okay,
What-
this little piece,
Yeah, that's the stone
that's
wall.
the stone wall.
Right.
Yeah.
Brought up some very
So
valid
that,
points here.
this is not there at
Yep.
all.
No.
No,
Oh, okay, so there's nothing there.
there's nothing
So
here.
12
this,
is,
So basically,
This all
it's
is good?
closest to those three houses.
but it's in front of the wrong,
Right.
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 Still 7, 8, and 9. It's roughly,
right, because what I want to see is
it's just a little
Want a
different,
variance?
actually.
Yeah,
This
okay.
thing
I'm
isn't
going to
there.
give restrictions around it.
Oh, okay. Yep.
Okay.
Make a motion to move
You
to
want-
next month.
This,
Maybe you
the
can
no finding,
squeeze
or do you want
buildings
it to next
together,
month?
Let's go to next month.
you know, like down closer to 10,
Talk a little bit.
bring one and put 7, 8 up in another area.
Yeah, we'll be happy to
Yeah, at least we can look at it that way, and
So it sounds like the board is leaning towards continuing it. I just want to make sure I have the questions that the board would like answered. That was the potential relocation of the buildings, the potential impacts to the wetland, and water and sewage usage. Am I missing any of them?
No, I think, hold on, I wrote on here, so hang on one
I mean,
second.
oil separators, we can talk about that later, but that's going to be an issue where cars are parked. But that's planning board,
That's
right?
planning board, yeah.
Yeah, and the only, so I'm gonna, for the record, this is then more, I need to get my head around it. Everything here is proposed is really more in theory.
Those plans are to show you what the potential development would look like,
So in theory.
in theory.
So if we gave you permission, like if we voted yes, you have the okay for multifamily, and we put a stipulation that you had to come back with accurate plans, you'd be good with that.
Absolutely.
I'm
We
just
have to do
talking
that to
for-
the planning board anyway.
Yep.
We'll be back in front of the board for the wetland buffer impacts as well, because we do have 2 wetland crossings.
Right.
I've got my questions answered, I think. Yep, I'm good.
Do we
And thank
wanna
you for putting up
continue?
with us.
Okay.
Yep.
Someone want to make a motion that we continue to next
I
month?
make a motion that we continue
Public hearing for 125 development.
public hearing for 125 Development Corp., section, relief from section XIV.1.
I'll get all of that for
You
you.
get all that till next month, June.
One thing, you're not continuing the public hearing, you're continuing the deliberations.
Deliberations only.
You've already closed the public hearing.
Yep.
Correct, right.
Deliberations.
That was my question. I thought you closed the public hearing.
Yes.
So therefore, you cannot accept any testimony from the developer about
Exactly.
anything.
That's true.
You have to make a decision based upon the plan in front of you because you closed the public.
Yes.
That's fine.
You closed the public hearing.
Yep, and we'll do our research on our own.
Right.
Yeah.
Aren't you allowed to reopen the public hearing?
Yes, we are. Yeah.
Yes.
Good. Yeah.
We didn't reopen
We
it,
didn't reopen.
It'll be a different set of plans, so
so we need
If you
to,
reopen the public hearing, it has to be renoticed.
yep,
All right.
and
That's it. We're gonna,
public hearing is closed, so both have to be
Are you
counteracted.
not allowed to open it the same night?
You don't know if anyone left.
yeah. That is correct. Okay. But anyway, so what is our plan?
I made the motion, if somebody wants to second it.
A second.
Okay. All those in favor of moving the
Aye.
Aye.
deliberation till June, is it June 1st, Jim? I think it is.
I believe so.
Yep.
Is it a first?
Yes.
All
June
those in
1st.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Unanimous, Jim. Okay. Thank you all very much. Yes, we're all through. The,
And so I have one question, Mr. Chair.
Yep.
We're going to make sure that the Sergeant Woods gets a copy of everything they want. Or Jim, are you going to do that?
yeah.
I don't have copies to give. I get enough
Okay.
for what is necessary.
All right.
At the end of the meeting, there are certain things that we're going to be discussing about possibly getting an extra sets of things and how
Yeah.
things will be delivered electronically.
Roger
Oh,
has
that's
a
mine.
copy.
I wrote on it.
2-minute break.
What did I do on mine?
I don't know.
The important thing is that we make sure
Oh, no,
that
that's
people are
yours.
looking at the right set.
I grabbed the wrong one.
It's okay.
Yeah. Can we have a 2-minute break?
On me?
2-minute break?
Yep.
We're going to take a 2-minute break in case anyone has to use the toilets or whatever. Thank you. I don't know.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I don't know how it looks on the phone. I don't have a cell phone. This is mine. Sometimes I get some
This is why I don't.
I am, yes.
My name's Steve Beck.
Thank you. Yes. And water concerns are.
These are mine.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Oh, no, the ones I ripped up, some of the stuff here. Yeah.
Bye-bye.
You know,
Hey, you guys better behave.
We will try.
I
Try
can
very
tell
hard.
you're trouble. Okay, bye-bye.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Put you in charge.
No, oh, give it to me.
I'm gonna give you one here.
Bye-bye, yes, thank you.
That's where it has to be.
Just so I wouldn't have to go.
Where's the, and show it,
Yeah. Kills me. So I shut myself off.
no, this is still a learning process for me. You take over the chair next year.
Too much darn trouble.
Honey?
Being the chair is too much trouble. I was the chair of
Thank you,
I was the chair of the planning board. I know how bad it is.
Well, thank you. So who's the first one to tell me in my case? My friend Roger.
Good for him.
Roger doesn't bother me. You can source it anytime you leave. It's good, it's a positive thing.
You guys all moved in my back there. Do that and I'll move with it.
So we're looking at, let's see, I gotta get this information on these guys.
That's when I got my feet where I built. Back in the 80s.
Hey, Mr. Kozak,
Yes.
this here,
Mr. Hamel, you're returning to the board?
as soon as he calls us to order,
I just want
have you, Mr. Kozak, have you referred this to the enforcement officer?
Yes. Jim's going to. We're gonna ask him before the meeting, before we leave.
There's a bunch of things that have come up that are on the end. I may start putting in other as the final item.
Are we all set back operations?
Yes, I went out and collected the applicant for the next item.
Okay.
Just-
Trish, and we're all set to continue? Let's continue on with our public hearing for John Silver and Ashley. Public hearing for relief from Section X.
Mr. Chairman, would you please ask the people to please move their conversation outdoors?
I'll read it again. The public relief from Section X111-10 specifically to allow more than one electric meter on their house at 41 Highland Avenue, Newton, New Hampshire. Property is referenced as tax map 5, block 4, lot 20. And Mr. Silver?
It is Highland Street, though.
Pardon me?
It's Highland.
Highland Street.
Highland Street.
It wasn't on here.
Oh, all right.
I apologize. All of my life, that was called
That's it.
Highland Ave.
No,
For
it's
some
street.
reason, they recently changed it to street.
Well, I moved from 43 Highland Court, which was off of Highland Ave, to 41 Highland Street.
Okay.
So it's been a little confusing for me too. So it took me a second to
Okay.
wait.
We'll just change it to Highland Court. What the heck?
I mean, it would make it would only confuse me more at this point. Every time I go to write my address, I really have to think about it. Sometimes
where
I pull
am
out my
I?
license because I'm like, it's insane.
Okay.
Do you steal my pen?
Pardon me? Oh, look at it, just look.
Bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go right ahead, sir.
So do I just run?
Yeah, just run through it. I know there's nobody here with the public. Well, we do have one. Excuse
No,
me.
I feel a little. Bill
But,
moment.
yeah,
You don't count.
I got approval from the planning board for an ADU, an accessory dwelling unit, to move my in-laws from the city to, into my barn. I'm in the process of renovating that. In doing so, I have a 100 amp electrical service that feeds both my barn and my house, and I need to upgrade that service to accommodate, the washer dryer, the dishwasher, all the appliances and heating and whatnot for the ADU, as well as my existing dwelling. In going down the channels to get the appropriate service, the can that houses the meter that needs to go onto my property to serve this has an 11-month lead time. So I'm asking for a variance to have a second service drop that would then feed both my main house and the ADU, because I have a 100 amp panel on my second floor, sub panel right now, an existing 100 amp service that drops into a 100 amp panel in my basement. So the additional service would be a 200 amp service that would go into my basement. The original service would feed my sub panel upstairs, which would then be in my main panel, and the new service would serve the first floor of my main dwelling as well as the ADU that I'm building.
any questions, people?
Is Unitil still 11 months behind?
It's probably a little bit less now,
Isn't
but
that
it's
awful?
insane to the
Wow.
point where I work in the city, I build labs,
Yep.
and the can that I need is a pretty common can for commercial, and I've exhausted just about every. Hey, what do you got laying around? All the building guys, the in-house guys, the electricians, like, do you have a meter socket laying around anywhere? It's just not there. And it's just a hunk of metal. There's
Right.
nothing to it. It's a metal box.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, sir.
At the preliminary, it was brought up, so I checked with the suppliers, Unitil, the various electrical suppliers. What he's saying is correct, however, what he's not saying, and I don't think he probably knows that, luckily there's a chair there. Those units, when they do come in, are first going to commercial uses, and residential uses are considered secondary. So if a supply comes in, say they get 2,000 units, and they need 2,010, Mr. Silver has to wait until that next shipment arrives. It's all been prioritized.
Wow.
Hate to say this to you.
That makes sense, to be
But
honest with you.
the commercial need is outweighing residential need on something like this. So while he says, actually last month he said that it was 12 months lead time, now it's down to 11 months lead time. That's for the, hopefully, first shipment to arrive. And who knows if how many will come in. It's the proverbial supply and demand issue.
When you get the bigger box, are you going to change that to one box or?
I wasn't planning on it. I was going to keep two, because my needs are really a 300 amp, roughly. It's 295 by calculations, and that's projecting for the future. Eventually, we would like to put in a pool, maybe a garage. So rather than, just upgrading to a 200 amp service, that would kind of get me by until next year when we change everything to heat pumps and this, that, and the other thing, and then having to do this all again and spending thousands and thousands of dollars to do it over again. I sat with my electricians and did load calculations and projecting for the next 5 years on what I would actually need. So the 200 amp service would satisfy me, and I wouldn't have to do anything.
Is there any more questions? Is there anybody out there in the public that would like to speak in opposition or for it? Okay. I'm going to end the public hearing, and we will go through and discuss what we'd like to do.
Can I make a motion?
Well, we need to go through the criteria and,
Oh,
Well, it depends what his motion is.
Yeah, let's talk about
Well,
first. Go
that
ahead.
he can put 2 meters on the house.
Right.
As long as it stays in one name. The bill has to stay in.
We can add that to the, if we approve it, you know,
Yeah.
as a condition.
Just so that we don't establish a precedent here that we're going to be sorry for. I agree.
Yeah, I agree
We
with
talked
that.
about that last time.
Roger,
Yeah.
you,
Conditional, which is
Seeing that that's his motion,
totally
we need
fine
to go
with me.
through the criteria.
right, yes. Jim, would you like to go through the
I don't want
criteria?
anybody I don't know living with me.
Yeah, as soon as everybody calms down.
Yeah. After everybody calms down, Jim will go through the criteria so we can vote.
Okay.
We're all set, Jim.
Okay, that's John and Sylvia, sorry, John, Sylvia, and Ashley
Guerriero?
Guerriero.
requested a public hearing for relief from Section 13.10, specifically to allow more than one electric meter on their house at 41 Highland Street, Newton, New Hampshire. The property is referenced as tax. Do you need me to read the citation?
Yes, please.
Okay. Section 13, Accessory Apartment, which was added in 2001 and amended in 2012. Pursuant to RSA 674:71 and 674:73, the Planning Board is hereby authorized to grant a conditional permit use to allow accessory apartments in accordance with the restrictions and requirements of this section. Maximum of 1 accessory apartment per property. Subsection 10 is specifically, the primary dwelling unit and the accessory apartment shall share common utilities including well, septic system, heating, and electrical service. Therefore, I will call out the criteria for the facts. Criteria number 1, granting the variance would not be contrary to the public interest. Mr. Gibbs?
Yeah. Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes, he's met the criteria because he is sharing the utilities.
Mr. Hamel, can you put your microphone back on?
Oh, excuse me.
I'm sorry, I could hear nothing of what you said.
Yeah, I said, first of all, for the record, I am back on.
I wrote that down.
Okay, so yes, he met the requirements of the criteria because they are common utilities between the accessory unit and the main unit.
Ms. McCarthy?
I have a question, and this is probably out of order, so I'm sorry. But on what you read, number 10, the primary dwelling, et cetera, is that where we should add what Frank said, that service in
That
one
is the
name?
citation. These are the criteria.
Okay, I'm just asking.
Once we go through the criteria, there will be a motion
Okay.
to grant,
I get
and
it.
that would be a condition of that motion.
Okay. Then, yes, I'm all set with this for number 1.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Okay, criteria number 2, if the variance were granted, the spirit of the ordinance would be observed. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Criteria 3, granting the variance would do substantial justice. Mr. Gibbs?
What do you think? Substantial justice.
Would you like me to repeat it?
No, he's reading it.
Oh, okay.
The response is on the application
I haven't got
that you
that.
got last month.
Yeah.
I don't have a problem with it.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Criteria 4, if the variance were granted, the values of the surrounding properties would not be diminished. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
And item 5, owing to special conditions of the property that distinguish it from other properties in the area, denial of the variance would result in unnecessarily hardship because One, no fair substantial relationship exists between the general public purposes of the ordinance provision and the specific application of that provision to the property. Mr. Gibbs.
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes, he's met the criteria.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
And Mr. Kozak?
Yes. The results, Jim?
The results are all of the criteria have been met.
I'd like to move to approve the variance. With what conditions that we want to add, Frank?
That the
Did you write that?
Yeah.
that the account remain
Made in one name.
Both meters are on one bill under the owner's account.
Could you repeat that?
Not one bill, under one name.
One name.
Under one name.
Well, they
I
also
don't
have to
know if they
appear
can,
on.
electric company can't put the bills together.
Yes, they can.
But we,
Well,
I
either
think
way.
Each meter has to have the
have
same
them on the
name.
same name.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
That's,
However,
Actually,
works.
it has to go under the same account
Yeah.
as opposed to the
Okay.
same name.
Could you just repeat that, Jim, what you've written down, please?
I agree with you.
The variance is granted
It's not
because it does,
account same.
it serves justice. And however, the account must remain in the same single name for both meters.
right.
Both meters.
How does everybody feel? Vote?
Wonderful.
Yeah.
that's
Mr.
the
Gibbs?
only condition, right?
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Excuse me,
Mr. Hamel?
before we vote, I have a question. That was the only
Right,
condition?
that's the only condition.
Okay, yes.
And that'd be a condition consequent,
Yeah, subsequent,
subsequent, thank you. So that was a yes, Mr. Hamel?
yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
That variance has been granted.
ZBA has been granted. You do have 30 days. Doesn't look like that's going to be a problem in case somebody complains and if they come in and have new evidence and why we should rehear it. Just want to let you know, but doesn't sound like you're going to be doing anything for several months.
Well, I mean, it's been nothing but entertaining every time I've been here, so I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Well, thank you.
Thank you, Board.
Thank you.
Let the applicant know, I hope to be drafting the notice of decision. Most likely it'll be done on Monday.
I've waited this long, take your time.
Well, I'll try to get it done tomorrow. I'm not certain if I can get my chair to sign tomorrow. But he
Thank
has a
you,
lot
Jim.
of other paperwork too.
We'd like to open the public hearing. If you want to... Is that, how would you say that? Talk?
What does that
T-A-W-K,
exactly mean?
talk. I want to open the public hearing from Talk LLC in Gloucester, Mass.
Your definition for that.
Guys? Seeks an equitable waiver from Section XX5, Section 4C for an encroachment of a building into the center line/lot line setback, specifically to allow the existing building to have a 3.5-foot encroachment into the setback. For Building 8 of Puzzle Lane, the property is referred to as map 14, block 1, lot 27-6. Section XX5 Light Industrial Commercial Zone Area Regulations. Okay. Do you want to go through it again there, young man?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not gonna,
It's a formality.
yeah, I'm not gonna be a dead horse. You guys know the whole story. So, and it's late. But, we were able to work with the seller of the property. My cousin Ralph was able to meet with him and come up with a solution here and got all the paperwork properly submitted from him. And according to the plans and everything that was submitted and everything that Jim was able to enlarge and photocopy. I think we have everything from our end to, properly depict exactly what's going on here, and it's a pre-existing structure, so.
All right. Is anybody out in the public want to speak for or against?
I will let you know because Mr. Gibbs mentioned it at the last one. The 11 by 17 that you received at the last meeting is at 18.7%. The one that shows the enlargement of that section.
Because we had a problem with the corner, remember?
It shows basically the corner of the building.
Yeah.
I believe that's it.
Yep.
Yeah.
That is at approximately 18.6% versus 20.
That is something.
It's as close as I could get. Yeah. It turns out that it's actually 4.2 feet of incursion. It was, I believe it originally said 3.6.
3.5.
Right.
When I scaled it out, it came to 4.3.
Well, let's move on. Thank you, Jim.
Okay.
We're going to close the public meeting at 9:36 p.m. and we'll go to deliberation. Anybody have any comments? No, you want to go
I
right
think
to
the
the
building
criteria?
should be able to stay where it is.
Okay. Do we want to go right to the criteria? That's what I'm asking, gentlemen, and, seems pretty straightforward. Yeah. Okay. Jim, you want to read off the criteria? And this is an application for an equitable waiver of dimensional requirements, which we haven't seen for quite a while. So if you notice, it's a little bit different than the variance. Remember, we can do like several things.
Yeah.
Okay, so this is Talk Media LLC of Gloucester, Mass. Seeks an equitable waiver from Section 25, subsection 1C, for an encroachment of the building into the center line, lot line setback, specifically to allow the building to have it should say 4.6-foot encroachment into the setback. For the building 8 off Puzzle Lane, the property is referenced as map 14, block 1, 73.
I do have a question for Mr. Doggett. In the application, there was also a statement about the 75-foot from the center line. And in the notice, that disappeared. I know that last month when we discussed it,
Didn't we
said
determine
that
that was a
there is no road, so
private
there is no,
road? Right.
there is no.
Correct.
Right, yeah.
So it actually, the center line part should disappear. It should just be from the lot line.
Yeah.
Because
Well,
there
I
is
guess
no road
my-
there.
Right.
My question is,
Excuse me.
do we need to convey that somehow? Or does the bank think it's a problem?
I wouldn't be here if the bank didn't think it was a problem.
Mr. Chair, if I can
I wouldn't be here
address-
if the bank didn't think it was a
I did
problem
some
because it came
research.
up
Right,
on
so-
the title
Roger,
search.
hang on. So, excuse me.
Mr. Hamel, that can be covered by making this equitable waiver specific to the application and not to the land, so that if the property is not purchased by this gentleman, then the present owner who owns both pieces of property can be required to come back and move things. However, this is an equitable waiver being presented by TALK, not by the present property owner.
Correct.
So you can make a condition of equitable waiver that it is specifically tied to the purchase and sale by TALK of this building. Because then they will have property rights in what happens there as far as development of roadway and what have you.
As long as the transaction goes through.
Yeah.
As long as the transaction goes through.
Exactly. And once the transaction goes through, then the equitable waiver goes to the land.
Are you happy with that, Roger?
Yeah, I just want to make sure that what we're doing solves the problem.
Right, yeah, I don't want to get a call 6 months down the road, be like, hey, you know,
But
we
we
gotta
talked about that.
have you back
for a
in.
while.
Yes.
But we addressed that, I think, Roger, last month.
Yeah, we did.
But it's not on a notice of decision
Yeah.
that he can take to the bank.
Yeah.
Then that's my issue.
Oh, I see what you, okay.
It will go on the notice of decision about the equitable waiver.
Yeah.
That it is specific to the situation as it sits now, and if the transaction is not completed, it goes away. If the transaction is completed, it goes to the land.
Yep.
Okay.
So you're trying to say that the new owner, if it doesn't go through, they gotta come back again?
Correct.
If it doesn't, the sale does not take place, then the equitable waiver is void, and
Why would we wanna do that and not have it on the building?
simply because if the same property owner owns both pieces of property, the ZBA can actually suggest that he shift the road. Because these people are only purchasing up to the center line of a paper road,
Right.
then they can't cause the road to be shifted. However, once they have property rights, they can. It just, in talking with the people at the NHMA and the, used to be Office of Strategic Planning, I don't know what they call themselves now. That was, they said, make it conditional to the purchase and sale.
Okay.
And that guarantees that it'll be addressed.
It's in the third floor one.
Are we all set,
Yeah.
everyone? Jim, would you read the,
Yep.
starting with number 1, please? Thank you.
Okay, do you want me to dispense with reading the?
Yeah, that's it. Just start off with number 1. I think that's
Okay.
fine.
The request involves a dimensional requirement and not a use restriction. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
The violation has existed for 10 or more years with no enforcement action, including written notice being commenced by the town, or the nonconformity was discovered after the structure was substantially completed, or after a vacant lot in violation had been transferred into a bona fide purchaser. That's where that little bit comes in. So I'm going with 2 subsection B, and that is the nonconformity was discovered after the structure was substantially completed.
So that's yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
The violation was not an outcome of ignorance of the law or bad faith, but resulted from a good faith error in measurement or calculation.
Yes.
Yes.
Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Item 3, the nonconformity does not constitute a nuisance nor diminish the value or interfere with the future uses of other property in the area. Mr. Gibbs?
You want me to explain it? Then
Excuse
it
me?
does not create a problem.
Okay, so you're saying that, yes, the nonconformity does not constitute a nuisance or diminish the value or interfere with future uses of other property in the area.
Correct. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Ms. McCarthy?
Yes.
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
I know.
Item 4, the cost of correction far outweighs any public benefit to be gained. Mr. Gibbs?
Yes.
Ms. McCarthy?
Yes,
Mr. Hamel?
Yes.
Mr. Conley?
Yes.
Mr. Kozak?
Yes.
Mr. Chair, all of the criteria have been met, with 2B being met versus 2A.
Move.
I have one suggestion on my list for the equitable waiver, and that is a condition that the equitable waiver be specific to the current purchase and sale agreement with TALK, and upon closing of that purchase, upon completion of that purchase and sale agreement, it will go, the equitable waiver will go to the land.
Is everybody okay with that?
I just have a comment. So typically when we do stuff like this, it should run with the land, which means it should be on the deed. It shouldn't, if he ever sells it, it should be on the deed. No new person should have to come back.
Right.
Okay.
Once his purchase and sale agreement is completed, then it goes
Then it goes
on
to deed.
his deed.
Right, that's what I'm
But
saying.
if that
The
purchase-
way you said it, it didn't sound like that's what you were doing. Yeah, it should run
Okay.
with the land.
I'll double check how
Yeah.
I word it. If the his purchase and sale agreement is not completed, then it is void, and it does not.
Okay.
I have two things. One, I would like the notice of decision to state in full Section 25.1C, that he is getting the equitable waiver from that section. That covers the 75 feet and the...
Okay.
So
okay.
it'll be...
Yeah.
I was asked not to read it, but it is all there.
Okay.
Where?
It's on the top, actually. I gave you a little worksheet.
I want that verbiage in the notice of decision.
I always do that for,
Okay, so it'll
For
clearly
ZBA.
show that, that both the 75-foot and the 50-foot
Right.
are included in the equitable waiver.
right.
The other question that I have, or comment that I have, is this decision should be recorded.
It will be.
It will be.
It will be.
But when are you going to record it?
As soon as the notice of decision has been signed, I take them up. It's just like Mr. Silva's notice of decision will be recorded. As soon as the chair signs it, I take it up to the registry. And
So the conditional decision will be recorded, and then if someone's doing a search, then they would basically have to, they would see this decision and they would have to check whether the sale took place.
that is true. However, this would be tied to the same, because it's tied by parcel number.
Right? So
This would show up, and the next thing that should show up on, actually, for some reason, the county does it in reverse, newest to oldest. This would show up along with a deed, which would contain this language.
Okay.
Are we all happy with the...
Would you like me to call the roll?
Pardon me? Yeah,
Like
have a
me to call
roll
roll?
call vote, please. Yeah.
You think?
Mr. Gibbs?
Aye.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
All right.
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye.
That is unanimous.
Motion carries unanimous. Okay.
Thank you.
As I told the previous applicant, I'm going to try to get them done tomorrow, but most likely I'll be doing them on Monday.
No worries.
Well, you want it as soon as possible.
Well, yeah.
Everybody wants it yesterday.
They do, but what's realistic in this world is realistic.
Well, I'm not sure if that 30 days would affect you, but just so you know, if someone could come in here and disagree with our approval, and if they came up with new information and said, hey, this is why, but, so just want to let you know, there's
Is there an appeal period for that?
Yeah, that's the 30-day appeal
30-day
period.
grace period, yeah. I mean, I would have no problem bringing it to the bank and getting it done. I don't see how anybody would want to, you know.
Yeah, because I know,
Yeah.
I'm not the bank, but
Yeah.
they got.
You heard all the people speaking against you.
Right, yeah. Yeah, those two people that spoke. Thank you. Okay. Okay. Next on the agenda is...
Other business.
Pardon me?
Other business.
Other business. Move to approve the minutes last month. Which I had
I'll make a
just
motion to
someplace.
approve the minutes dated
4/6.
April 6, 2022.
Okay.
Second.
All those in favor?
All right,
Aye.
Aye.
Yeah.
The manifest is in
Yep.
front of you, Mr. Kozak.
Okay.
It's way up here with the red paperclip.
Where is it at?
Way up by your name with the red paperclip.
Oh, over here. Okay. Does everybody have a copy of the manifest, or should I read it?
no,
It was, I
it was
emailed it
emailed,
up.
I didn't print it.
Oh, okay.
Jason
I
printed.
saw it, but I didn't print it.
Came in the package.
What?
It came
The total was for $101.43 for petty cash, and Jim, a couple of dollars for dropping all the packages off to everybody. I think we probably saved some money on that, so,
Yes.
yeah. Anybody need to see this?
They all received it via email.
Okay.
Move to pay.
I want to make sure we don't lose the copy, Jim, like,
Yeah.
okay, whoops, God, I'm gonna choke myself here, this thing, okay. Is there any other new business to attend to?
Who seconded that? Thank you, Mr. Conley.
Okay.
Mr.
those in-
Gibbs?
Aye.
Sorry about that.
Ms. McCarthy?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
All right,
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak?
Aye. Okay.
There are a couple of quick things that you wanted to bring up, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, what were they?
How to handle the things that do not have
A denial.
denial.
Yeah, you know, we normally like to see a denial. That's always been our procedure. We kind of got out of hump with these two. And I suggest that if somebody comes in with an applicant and doesn't have a denial, like we just talked to some young lady, and if they don't have a denial, that we won't accept the application. It's been our procedure for the last 10 years, you know. That forces them to go to the building department. And I think if it were to happen on a lot of these things, we probably wouldn't get how rough these plans were and so forth. Probably would have been cleaned up between them and probably gone back to the planning board, you know. But that's what I'd like to do.
I always thought it should have gone to the planning board first, from not even the building department.
Right, yep.
I mean, years
The
ago,
normal
that was the
procedure would be
normal
the
way.
planning board and goes to the building department.
Yeah.
You know? And
Right.
that's why in the building department would make the denials on the variance request, you know?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Currently, because of the way my job description is, I have not been authorized to look at people and say, you don't have a denial letter, therefore it cannot go to the ZBA. I have to accept it.
Yep.
Once I accept it,
That's it.
it goes before you, and you can continue it forever.
Yep.
Until you take jurisdiction, your clock doesn't kick in.
we don't have.
I
a
don't
clock.
have the power to look at them and say, you don't meet the first criteria of being in front of the ZBA, a denial letter from either the building department or the planning board, or an administrative error that you're arguing.
So I'd like to make a motion that we give Jim the authority to reject an application if it does not have a denial letter.
A second for discussion, and then I have a question. So, again, I'm going to go years ago, probably because we didn't always have a building inspector and sitting in that seat.
Yeah.
Are we going to accept a denial even if it's from the building inspector, or do we want it from the planning board first?
Absolutely. From the building department normally, yeah.
Not the planning board first?
Well,
a
it
denial.
depends what kind of a
Yeah, the planning board-
application
But I
it is.
thought we've got something in writing
Yeah.
that said we needed a denial.
Yeah.
And years ago, that denial typically wasn't the building department.
You know, we've
Is
never
that
got
in
a denial, excuse me, I'm sorry, in the last 10, 12 years that I've been from the planning board, never. They always came from the building inspector.
All right.
Yeah.
We've gotten denials from,
Yeah.
from the planning board. 'Cause when I was on the planning board, we did denials and they came here. They didn't go to the building inspector.
Yeah.
All right, it was just a question.
But my question is, do our rules of procedure state that?
Our rules of procedure are silent on that.
Yeah.
So really, I think the appropriate thing to do
Yep.
is to modify our rules of procedure.
I like that idea.
To accept,
Yeah.
only accept applications that have been denied. Yeah.
It's easy to force something that's in writing.
You know, and that's, and I, you know, when they came from the planning board, and the problem always there is, you know, we were looking at feet, you know, and you never, the planning board never said to us that need a variance for 15 feet or 12 feet or whatever. There was stuff that we had to work up, and we shouldn't have. I hated doing that because if we ever made a mistake and it went to the building inspector and so forth, then, you know, sometimes you might have forgot the overhang of the building, whenever. We always wanted to see the footage calculated for us, you know? But we'll accept it from the planning board, but, you know, but I'd write a letter back to the chair and say, what is this? You know, do your math, you know? Yes.
If the ZBA would like, I will put together some specific language to be included in the rules of procedure. If you want to continue with that motion, because the rules of procedure at the next meeting, you would review it.
And approve it.
So you'd be several months down the line before. If you want to give me that authority until it's in the rules of procedure, that would probably save you a little bit. One of the things that I've noticed is that some people pick and choose what they come to you with from their denial. Building department may say I'm denying it for this, and this reason, and you have one plan tonight. You only saw it for one of the reasons that it was denied.
Yeah.
I will draft language that says that if you have a denial, all of the denials have to be covered
Right.
in your application.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay.
Everybody go along with Jim's suggestion?
Yep.
Good. Very good. Yep. Yeah.
So, Ms. McCarthy seconded that.
Yes.
Do you want to do just a call?
Mine, yours.
Yeah, roll call vote. Mr. Gibbs, how do you vote?
Say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Trish?
Aye.
Mr. Hamel?
Aye.
Mr. Conley?
Aye.
Mr. Kozak? Aye, unanimous. Aye. Was there anything else we discussed this week, in the last few weeks, Jim? That we wanted to get on the agenda?
These poor people.
I think that was it.
Probably, I remembered them back at 7:30 and, 2.5 hours later. There is one issue that has cropped up, and I would also like the board to consider this for its rules of procedure. I think I've been doing a good job keeping you people informed. The digital versions of these plans that are being supplied have grown exponentially beyond what I can post on the website. Therefore, I would like to see a change in the rules of procedure so that the administrative assistant gets to call up the engineer going, "Now, you gave me files that are way too big. Please cut them down to under thus dimensions," without specifically putting in the rules of procedure what the dimensions are in case they change. But I got paperwork that what was given to me on a thumb drive, I hit print, and I told it to print it by an 8.5 by 11. I told it to use the parameters from and it printed out as 11 by 17, so I got these huge sheet size.
Yep.
It was an engineer just being funny. But if I can't put it on the website, then we're losing transparency. And on that same vein, I've always only asked for enough sets of plans so that the 5 of you get one, and I have one for the record. However, as you saw tonight, we may ask for 1 to 2 additional sets so that I can either find a place out back that I can pin it on the wall and people can come when the office isn't open and view it, or I can put it downstairs, or if it's particular to Sergeant Woods, I can send them a copy. But because of the cost of those plan sets, I don't want somebody going, yeah, Jim Dog, it costs us an extra $150 to print out an extra plan set. That needs to come from the board saying that you want enough plan sets to cover your membership, the file, plus 2 additional for public viewing.
I think you should make an administrative decision according to whatever is in front of you.
Right.
End of story.
This is all stuff that I'd like to bring before you for changes to the rules of procedure, just little things that I've run across. And since we've just been discussing it, or since you have discussed it, hopefully you will, I can start to enforce it now because it's anticipated change. Please feel, those were the 2 things that I had noticed.
Everybody
One just
happy
came
with
up
that?
tonight.
That sounds good, Jim. Yeah.
Okay.
Very happy. I think that's it. I think we talked those 2 items we discussed. One other thing I mentioned tonight. You know, we start our meetings at 7:30. I think every other board in town starts at 7.
That's correct.
Would you like, is any objection to change it to 7? Mike, is that a problem for you? Jim said if there was a problem, it might be you. Work-wise, I'm not sure.
It's just work, yeah, but you may see me more dialed in than you see me here, that's all.
Yeah.
That's fine. The only thing I'd like to bring up again, find a place here to put stuff for us.
Oh, I know. I've got a
Find a
box
place
in my
here
car.
so that we can keep our files in here somewhere.
I have asked, however, I can only secure for you someplace that you can access when town hall is actually open.
That's fine.
There is no place in the building that is open for general access. I asked, and they will not give everybody access through other doors.
That's fine. I mean, you're.
I would like to, trust me.
But you're going to typically give us stuff, and I don't mean a place where you come and put stuff in an envelope, or a mailbox, but when we get this stuff, when it's, okay, we're going to pass this on from this month to next month.
I know.
Right? I've got enough stuff at home trying to keep it, it'd just be nice to separate it.
Right. I have a box I carry around in my car.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I have more, this is just for here, right?
Yeah.
If I do commercial solar, do you want to know what my plans look like?
Oh, yeah.
Or a wind farm? It's just hard. It'd be nice if we had something here.
Yeah, I'm sure Ms. McCarthy is not admitting that in the back of her truck vehicle, there are probably 4 boxes. One says rec.
Yes.
One says.
Yep.
Wow.
I have asked, and the selectmen do not believe that it's necessary.
The ARPA committee is working on a place for storage, so we've got that on our agenda.
But even the conservation, your individual members cannot get into the building.
Oh, yeah. We're working on it.
Yeah, I'm going to adjourn the
We need a new
meeting
town hall.
at 10 p.m.
10:05.
10:05, excuse me.
Do something.
Thank you, sir.
You want to shut your units off, I guess, people?
Okay.
Okay.
We just shut it to mute.
You are